Can you explain to us, I mean, there's this idea you're going to go in and eradicate Hamas. That's what the Obama administration wanted to do with the Taliban. 20 years of war later, who's in charge of Afghanistan? The Taliban. Is this even a possible task at this point?
There is some advantages that Israel has that we didn't, in that it's a very confined and finite areas. You know, you have the fences around the Gaza Strip and the sea on the other side, whereas in Afghanistan, they were literally all over the entire countryside. However, that being said, that there's a bigger problem for the Israelis is that there are so many people in there, and you can say you're going to move them all to the south if you want to, but they're not all going to be able to get there. I mean, logistically, where are they going to go? What are they going to eat, et cetera? But the bigger issue is that Hamas is telling people not to go. So if Israel goes in on this operation here, there's some huge questions about how are they going to identify a Hamas fighter from just a man defending his home, from somebody who's just in the crossfire. I mean, those are big, big questions, because if Israel doesn't distinguish and literally start shooting everyone, then all of a sudden everybody in Palestine who has a gun, and that's nearly everybody, will be shooting against the Israelis just out of sheer self-defense and no other way. So they can't go in that without those kinds of important rules of engagement defined, or they could make their problem orders of magnitude worse.
Lieutenant Colonel, we're just getting updated information right now that the IDF is confirming that there are forces within Gaza, and they have been there within the past 24 hours. What does that tell us from your vantage point?
Yeah, that tells me what one of the things I was hoping to hear is that they are trying to get actual on-the-ground intelligence, because that is absolutely vital to having any kind of successful operation in military terms anyway, but doubly so in an environment where there's so much urban terrain. They need to be able to identify where the routes of ingress are, where the booby traps might be, where the areas that they need to avoid. And of course, most importantly, they need to find out where those hostages are, because the last thing Israel wants to do is go in, heavy handed and then find out that they actually kill some of their own hostages.
We just look at this map here that's on our screen. Can we ask our director, Rob, to pull that map back up for our viewers? Yeah. When we just looked at this map, Lieutenant, what do you see here? I mean, what is the likelihood that we see Egypt, for example, open up a corridor so that those who are, under this most recent evacuation order for 24 hours could get out and perhaps see the creation of those safe zones that Secretary Blinken was talking about?
Well, that's certainly what a lot of people are wanting to see. And I know that behind the scenes, there's a lot of diplomacy going on to allow that very thing. But Egypt, of course, has been historically very reluctant to allow that in there, because the last thing they want is to have a big influx of refugees. And, there's a lot of animosity between Egypt and Hamas over the years, and they don't want to have any chance that some of the Hamas members actually get out, or that they just have to handle the humanitarian issue. But the people of of Palestine desperately need that help. At the very least, they need to open a corridor in so that they can just get food and water.
Lieutenant Colonel, just a couple seconds before we have to let you go, but why would Hamas tell its residents to stay home and ignore the evacuation order? Is that simply a death sentence?
It certainly could be, but, they don't really care about human life. And what they do care about is making it hard on Israel. So they want as many to stay as possible, to act as human shields, or to slow down Israel, or to act as gunmen on their behalf for the reasons that I just mentioned there. So they could care less about life, but they're putting people in harm's way with no problem.